Sharon Van Etten is a singer-songwriter based in Los Angeles. In the latest addition to a celebrated career as a solo artist, she released her 7th studio album this year, her first with a newly formed band called The Attachment Theory. Taking a decidedly collaborative and band-oriented approach, the album was met with huge critical acclaim and has since popped up on plenty of end-of-year lists. I sat down with Sharon ahead of her headline show in Sydney to chat fortune, evolving as an artist, and more. Sharon Van Etten. Very nice to meet you. I'm James.
James Elliott. Nice to meet you.
You started your career as a solo musician with what is now a very established sound. And on this new record, you've got a totally new configuration of musicians to call your backing band. Tell me about how the creative process differs between making a solo record and making a record with a band.
You know, when you're playing with a band, it's harder to isolate, which is how I used to write. I tend to write by myself, and it usually stems from feeling something very intensely that I don't really have the words for yet. And so I'll go to my studio and I'll just start playing, and I won't really know what I want to say yet, but I'll develop the melody and I'll sing stream of consciously. And when I have a part A and a part B, I'll record for like 10 or 15 minutes and just let myself get it out. And I won't really be thinking about it, but sometimes melodies turn to sounds, turn to words, turn to phrases. And then every now and then, like I'll be conscious of, oh, why am I saying this? But I'll try not to overthink it. When I'm done, I hit stop and then I set it aside and I don't listen back to it for a while. And then maybe weeks, months later, sometimes years later, I'll listen back to these original stream of conscious recordings and I'll listen back to it and try to listen with more distance and time and space and try to understand what it was I was going through. And then if it really speaks to me, I'll start carving out real stories and narratives and feelings around the scattered phrases that are in it. When you're by yourself in that kind of fashion, it's easier to get lost in it or overthink it. But when you're with a group of people, there's dialogue and there's discourse. When you're playing with a band, there's a lot more. This can come in and out and they can communicate with each other.
What do you think that percolation period between recording the initial idea and bringing it to a group like the Attachment Theory, what does that offer you?
So this record we all wrote from the ground up together. I used that process in front of my band, so it makes me be more decisive. And then it's a lot more conversations about chord progressions or key changes and, like different inversions and how to play chords to bring out certain structures and things that I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be having conversations at all by myself.
That collaborative process, is that something you'd done before?
No. So this is the first time I've ever written songs for my own project with a group of people. And it's a real test of ego, but I really love the sonic palette that we had created from recording the last record together. Well, the last record wasn't recorded together because it was COVID, and so we recorded it from afar. So it was recorded piecemeal. I wrote a lot of songs, height of COVID. It was the first time I was home with all of my gear in one space. And so from all of these instruments that I had accumulated since my first record into 2020, I finally had it all in one space. I had just moved to LA. And so I wrote a lot of demos. I was going through a ton emotionally, and I would send my demos out in that way. And my front of house engineer at the time, Dan Knowles, he helped me get together all of these demos and all of my tracks for my own recordings, and then he made them all workable. And what wasn't workable, we ended up overdubbing. The couple of musicians that were in LA, and then my bass player, Devra, was in New York. And then when we were rehearsing that record, that's when Teeny came and joined us in the band to learn the songs for tour. And in that iteration of the band is what really inspired me to ask them if they would just want to jam.
It's such an expressive and wide album that feels like a watershed in your discography. What prompted that?
For the first time, I had a collective of people that I wanted to represent, and I wanted them to be able to represent themselves in the songs. And so I think there's a lot of space that each bandmate could carve out for themselves.
It's such a band album, and there's nobody hogging the spotlight in it, at least to my ear. Like, everyone's contributed really meaningfully in a singular way. There's a real existential sort of agitation to the record. There are moments that feel both anxious and kind of surrendering toward things like mortality and love. What sort of demands does making music that's so thematically heavy make on you as an artist?
We're all going through so much, not just the band, but I think what's going on in the world is such a weight. And, the older I get, the more of a responsibility I feel to acknowledge the darker moments. But also as a mother, I have a responsibility to be able to find the light in it all because, you're trying to help your kid grow and achieve and want to change the world. And so I've constantly walked this wire of feeling like dark and feeling depressed, but also like having to forcing myself to be hopeful and um trying to think about the things that we can change and trying to be okay with the things that you can't. They're heavy topics, but we're also all at ages where like our parents are aging and I'm the only one with a kid in the band, so like he's growing up and I'm feeling older, my parents are getting older, and in the in the writing of the record my husband's dad was really ill, so just mortality is it's always on my mind, but especially it was like palpable when I was writing this record. And so I try to just be gentle with these darker feelings of grief that I think we're all battling.
While there is that sort of slightly anxious feeling to moments on the record, there's also a real joy in there. Do you think that inherent optimism of motherhood and sort of watching all of these things coalesce around you and having to make the best of it, has that played into the writing of the album?
Well, you have to force yourself to look at everything, and not everything is beautiful. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing my mind because you're having to sometimes see what isn't there. But I don't know. Most of it's just about being human between different generations and between what's happening in the world, and also like your own inner demons, just acknowledging the grief and the darkness in it all and just be able to keep moving forward. But, being a mom, I don't want my kid to think about darkness. But, I don't think he sees me battle it yet.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah. I'd like to keep it that way.
Sure. I've seen you play once before, earlier this year at End of the Road. It was really so fun and, from where I was standing, kind of triumphant. What's the response been like taking this album around the world?
You know, also End of the Road was the first time I've ever headlined a festival, so that was a really big deal for me. And also to be in the UK where I feel like, that was the heart of the record, that we recorded it in London because so many of our influences are from there, had gotten their start there, and really represent a huge part of our mood board for our sound. But yeah, it's been great getting to play all over the world. It's just first of all, we know how lucky we and how fortunate we are to be able to do what we do, especially in these wild times. It's not like it's getting easier to go on tour or be a musician or an artist, and um, so we feel so fortunate to get to share our music with these incredible fans all over. When you can go through these dark moments and you get to be reminded every night that you play a show that these communities still thrive and exist, and you help nurture them by coming there and bringing these groups of people together that just want to convene with love. And I feel like people really connect with this record, and I think they see the love that we share for each other on stage, and hopefully that they walk away feeling the same way.
I've got a slightly curlier question, just riffing off something you just said. You sort of corrected yourself there. You said we're very lucky and then changed it to fortunate. What's the difference for you? What's the distinction between luck and fortune?
When I think of, I guess, fortunate is something that's shared. Um, and it's not so much of a reward's not even the right word, but I don't yeah, I don't know. It's a good distinction, I suppose. But yeah, luck just feels like it's maybe by accident and kind of trite. But I think fortunate just feels like emotional kind of I want to say reward, but that's not the right word. I don't know.
Yeah, cool. I like it.
Emotional riches.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't like riches because it doesn't really apply.
Sure. But I think I know what you're saying. Yeah. I've just got one more. If you could play me any album, what would you play me?
Well, right now, Kate LeBon's new record. When I heard the song "Is It Worth It," "Happy Birthday," and then I saw the video for it later. Like, it was already emotional, but then you see the visual to it as well. It was I was really moved by it, and I heard an interview saying that it wasn't really the record that she set out to make, but she was going through so much heartache that she's like, That's just what the album is. It's not what I wanted to do, but in the end, it was the record that wanted to be made." So I completely relate to that sentiment, and it's such a beautiful record.
Usually people say, I can't think of one. Can I do three? Do you have two others that you would recommend to people?
Well, actually, my Rose, who's been assisting my tour manager on this Australian run, she just turned me on to Laura Jean,
Oh, cool.
who I didn't really know before, and it's Laura Jean and what was the other record? Cyanide Thornton.
Don't know that one.
Oh yeah, so they had two new artists that I'm just exploring,
Cool.
that are Australian artists, and I'm locked in now.
Okay, awesome. What do you like about the Laura Jean sound?
Well, her vocals are just so unique, and yeah, I've never heard arrangements like that, and there's something about her arrangements that feel familiar, like harkens back. It reminds me of a lot of music I listened to growing up in the '90s, but it also still feels very modern.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, again, I've heard a handful of songs, and
Sure.
I just want to hear more now.
Cool. And the Cyanide Dawn one? What do you like about it?
In a similar way, there are very interesting beats that kind of pulled me in, and at first I thought it was PJ Harvey. But we're just like driving in the van. We're like 10 people in the van, and so the music's never on too loud. But I kind of turned it up a little, and I saw the name on her
Gave it a nudge.
phone, and I was like, okay, I need to dig more. And it's just exciting to be in a country where I'm turned on to new music. It gives me hope.
Totally. What a beautiful thing. Sharon Van Etten, thank you so much.
James Elliott, thank you so much.